let's start the stream.
Oh man, it's a pleasure to meet you too. This is great. Hey, look at this.
Good to go.
Crowd from
Okay.
How did you
This is what our picture looks like.
Hey, Sammy, how are you?
Great.
I went out the right way. Did you go left or right? I went right.
Sounds good.
I went right out of the room.
So is it good to go?
Tim.
People listening.
Okay, there you
You want to try it? Is it a way to try to see if this works?
Yeah, go ahead and check it out, see if it works.
Let's in the next couple weeks. Would be great.
Alright,
Go over
hold on for a second.
intake. I'd love to hear your.
during the day?
Depends.
Wanna try?
Huh?
Wanna try?
Yeah, during the day is great for me. That's my job.
So the thing is, I'm going to be switching between the views. If I'm on the program switching between the view, you won't be able to use it. But if I click in
Can I have your
slide,
I'll send you a
so it's highlighted as the primary windows, then you'll be able to use it.
Okay.
So if you want to just nod at me, that might be the best.
Okay. So if I'm gonna do that, I don't really need to.
You know what it is?
Is there a way to look? Because I don't know. I did this slide. I don't know if that. If I had this slide, that's why I was. But you said that.
We should have looked at it 2 minutes ago.
So
When you get to that slide, just look behind it.
well, I'm not gonna do this because that would just be too. It's too confusing for me to do this. So.
Yeah, it's like, if it doesn't show up, then just talk to it.
I'm gonna have to stand like this way and watch it. I mean, so I know that. I use the slides as my prompter for what to say. Just it's weird about looking at
Yeah, that sounds better.
I can just shot on my phone. So everybody would know. I mean, this is 4/5 of our collective. I'm sorry, 5/7 of our collective. He has California, so he can't.
Hey, calm down, you crazy animals. Hey. Well, that really worked. Okay, great. I never thought I'd have to yell at you guys in the early hours of the morning to get started. So, hey, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I hope that we're going to get a few more guys. As many of you probably experienced, I leaned a little bit on showing up to these leader meetings, and so hopefully as we go forward, we'll have to transition to a bigger room and get all of our guys here. Let me pray for us this morning as we get started, and just prepare this space. Well, Lord, we thank you so much just for your goodness, God, that you have brought us to a place, no matter what our story is, God, that you have brought us to this place, to sit amongst these men, but that we have a story of common grace among you, God, that you have brought us from death to life, that you have brought us into restoration and into recovery, Lord, that we have stepped into a place not only of finding healing in our journey, but leading and stepping into the process of this ministry of reconciliation to bring us to the ends of the earth. And so, God, we praise you this morning. We thank you for your spirit. We thank you for your goodness and your grace. We pray that everything that we do here would honor you and your spirit, and that you would move amongst us as we learn and grow as men that have a mission, God. And we thank you for your love over this time. Amen. Amen. Feels good. So this is our September Leaders Training, and we have John Fort with us today with Be Broken Ministries. He's going to be teaching us in just a little bit, but I wanted to start this morning going over, where's my slide guy? Oh no.
The clicker works.
Oh, it does?
There's your slide guy.
He slid out.
Will the clicker work? There we go. So I wanted to start with a little bit of a devotional from 1 Corinthians 3. This is the Message version because it most fit what I wanted to say. So that's what you do with Scripture. You find the best version that fits with what you want to say. With the grace of God, like a skilled architect, I built on the foundation. That foundation being Jesus Christ. That's from the Message version. Recently, I've been going through the book, The Emotionally Healthy Leader by Pete Scazzero. Have you guys read that book?
No. I'm reading Emotionally Healthy Spirituality right now.
Yes. So it's that, but it's for like leaders specifically. I recommend it highly for you all to go through. Being fully transparent, honest, reading that book has completely wrecked me as a leader. Just going through the different layers of what it looks like to be a healthy spiritual leader, emotionally, spiritually, physically, taking on the process of being a leader. And as you guys all know, I've met with a lot of you. I've been in this job for about 2.5 months. I stepped into this position from working in construction, being a general contractor, building, being a part of the trade industry. And although this job is literally exactly what I would want for my life, I didn't know it, but it perfectly fits with my passion and my heart and hopefully my skill sets as they become more defined. But when you're a contractor, right, you go to these jobs, you go to a house, and you walk in, and no one truly cares how deep the well of your spirituality is. Like, it's not, oh, hey, before you start tiling the shower, how was your PB&J this morning? Was it really good for you? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you were emotionally well before you started this project. Like, said no client ever. All they want is the job to get done and for you to get out as efficiently and as quickly as possible with the best quality, right? Mm-hmm. So no one's there catering and mentoring and shaping your soul. And so stepping into this job, it was very revealing of just the weight of responsibility. I am no better, no different than you guys. We're all on this equal plane. But stepping into this position where I have to intentionally look for and care for you as our leaders and for our people and for the wives of all of our families is a huge responsibility. And it's one that I took with great humility and with a great sense of honor. It was a very humbling experience. But what it also revealed was that although I was generally what I would consider to be a good Christian man, I felt like I honored the Lord and loved the Lord and spent time with Him. You know, there may be some areas where I could shore up my spending time in Scripture or spending time in intercession. But taking on this position and feeling the weight and the burden and the mantle of leadership really began to expose where I was deficient and where there were things that I was trying to build upon myself, but with the wrong materials. And so as you look into this 1 Corinthians, we're called to, in this ministry as leaders, like skilled architects, like skilled builders, begin to layer in the proper materials to go forward.
Slide guy.
Slide guy!
Is there a certain button difference or?
Oh, he's coming.
Oh.
Did
Don't
you
push a
say-
button.
Did you say that the remote should work?
Your remote should be working.
Well, maybe it's user error. There's a button with an arrow, and I would assume that would mean go the right direction.
Go ahead and hit it.
Hey, there we go.
Thank you. It's the flick of the wrist.
Like you said, you just have to sit in front of the technology, and it gets scared and works for you. Oh, and hey, can we give a round of applause to Cody? He has He has literally come over after hours, after work to my house. This is one of our new live stream setups. We have hopefully a better quality microphone and a camera for people who are viewing it. This will be recorded. We can go back and listen to it. But he's probably spent 6 hours plus after work coming by and getting this set up. So thank you, Cody, for your service.
Hey, Cody.
And we'll try to call you something more respectable than Slide Guy. We'll come up with a title for you.
Senior slide guy.
Senior Executive Slide Assistant. So one of the questions I just want to pose to you this morning, as you look at yourselves as the emotionally healthy 423 leader, is what are you building the foundation of your leadership upon? What materials are you beginning to layer into your day and your work week and your time, so that when you go to be a leader of your men, and when you go to press in and move into this position where you are taking care of the souls of your people, what is it that you're actually bringing to the table? And so, realizing that this weight is that all of this does become inspected. What you bring to the table, what you're building your foundation of your leadership on, reflects in your leadership and reflects in the quality of the leaders that you are raising up. So we're called to be just a little bit deeper than we probably have. I think for me, I am a grace and grace alone type of guy. Even in my walk with Christ and my walk with God, it was never a problem of really coming to understand my identity in Christ. What I have realized is that I need to be a man that truly looks with honesty and integrity of what actions and what things I am tangibly putting into place inside of my walk with Christ, so that I can become a leader that leads well. So as I gotta get used to this thing. There we go. Yeah. So I don't want to take up too much time because I want to give more time to John. But what I want us to realize and focus on just in this brief morning devotional, let's call this. This is not a teaching. This is just something for you to reflect on as you go about your time as a leader in 423. Is that the things and the practices that you put in place every single day, and I know a lot of us are experiencing burnout, comes from what we actually put into practice in our daily lives. So it's not just, okay, my 423 guideline says that I have to practice prayer, Bible, and journaling. Fine, I got 3 of those out of the day. But what is the quality of the relationship that you have with God in the early morning moments? What is the quality of your inner life and your thought life? Do you go to God in those moments of stress, of burnout? When you go to your 423 leader, when you go to your 423 meetings as a leader, are you stepping into that space at the end of a day, burnt out from a 12-hour work day, and you're stepping in and just giving the last little fumes of what you have to offer? Or are you spending a few minutes in prayer, just asking that God would minister and work through the working of the quality of what you have prepared for in your inner life? And like I said, I'm on no different level and in no better, maybe worse than most of you in terms of this. We have to go to God to get the materials to bring, to build our leadership to a different level. If we want to take care of our men and we want to raise and train up these men through their walk in recovery, we as leaders have a responsibility and a weight to carry of walking this, where we are bringing materials to build a foundation to help build our 423 groups the best way that they can. I don't want us to get to the place where we've built a house in construction. Well, there's actually quite a few construction guys in here, where you've built a house, and as you know, as I know, some of you know as a construction guy, you start with the foundation and you begin to layer a house in. And every bit of material that goes in, if it's not quality of material and installation, that house will fail eventually. And the same thing goes for us as we build our 423 groups, as we act as leaders inside of our program, every layer that you bring every single day, you're building a foundation for your group. And you are laying the groundwork for them to begin to build up in their recovery journey. And so my challenge for us today is just to simply take a look, maybe read this book. I'd actually love to, Rachel and I were talking about putting together an ongoing book club for 423 leaders where we all read a book together, and I'd love for us to go through the Emotionally Healthy Leader together, because the principles and the questions that it asks are so revealing of where we're at as leaders. So I'm going to introduce John here. It's not working, Cody. There we go. But I just wanted to give a brief update with where we are as a 423 family. We have some really exciting things coming down the line this week. Our 423 Sisters group is meeting for the first time this next Thursday. So we're very excited for, I'm looking forward to this new format that we've put together. Rachel has spent most of the summer rewriting the curriculum for the women to go through. It's going to be an 8-week intensive journey for women to go through and get a very comprehensive background of a recovery journey and what trauma looks like and how to walk through the recovery process well. I think we almost have a full group of women starting this process, and this will also be something that we continue to shape as we learn more about how to minister to our sisters groups. But we're really looking forward to that. So I'd ask you guys to pray for that. Yeah.
Have they been on pause, or is this a new group?
This is a new group with a new format.
Okay.
And
Wonderful.
totally new. It's different from the widget that all the other 423 groups follow.
Okay.
We found, and through counsel and thought, that the perpetual widget model that 423 exists in was not healthy for the women going through trauma recovery. And so we're hopefully establishing a phase one of their recovery where they go in and can learn some very applicable tools for their recovery journey before they step into a lifelong group model. So this is our first step.
Cool. And
we'll hopefully develop that going forward. Next big thing is that we're really leaning into our 423 Next program. It's a new title for our 423 Young Men's, Young Women's, and Parent Resources. We have a number of Christian schools that are interested in starting 423 Young Men's groups this school year, so starting very soon. We're in talks with a lot of different youth groups that have expressed a huge desire to move forward with groups for young people. I don't know how many of you saw on the church app, the Church Center app, where I posted a need for us to step into possible leadership inside of our 423 Young Men's program. The need is great, but the workers are few. And so we're asking that you would prayerfully consider what it might look like for you to step into a 423 Young Men's leadership role. It's more of a mentorship role, where we'd have training on how to be an effective leader inside of that group. But consider that. If that tugs at your heart and the Holy Spirit is asking you to respond to that, we'd love to have a database of just full of our 423 leaders that can step into a young men's program and effectively lead that for Westside Christian High School or Valor Christian High School or Westside of Jesus Church's youth program. I'd love to be able to say, oh yeah, we've got 2 guys that say Monday nights at 5:30 work, and they can lead that group for you. So think about that, pray about that. There's a form on the Church Center app that you can just submit your, yes, I'm available Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:30. We'll go from there. The next thing is, I've heard from a lot of you that we would like to have better training on our intake process for new guys that are coming into group. One of the things that we have reestablished is the heavy touch on the intake process. So when a new guy comes into a group, they'll have a 30 to 45 minute phone call with me, where I will share what 423 is, what it's not, what we're expecting of them, lay out the guidelines. They read it, but if like any contractor reads every line, hopefully they do. But this is that personal touch of, we're calling you into a place of action. This is not just a passive Bible study. This is a group of guys that you are committing to for the long haul to work through this process of development. And so I'd love to provide intake training. We're going to put that together. It'll probably be a Zoom training or a digital training for anyone that's interested in doing intakes in a more heavy capacity. So I'll send that out, and you'll see an update from that shortly. Dave.
Yes, sir.
Dave is a mighty man of God, a mighty man of valor. We are having his retirement party, his 70th birthday and retirement party from 423 coming up on October 7th. How many of you guys have seen that on the newsletter, on the website? Dave has. Good. He's not too far gone, guys.
We're close.
I wanted to push this invitation out to you again. We've sent it out in multiple forms of communication. This is a time for us to go and thank Dave. I know for me, I would maybe feel awkward of, well, Dave doesn't know me that personally, so I won't take up space at his party. But if Dave has had any form of impact on your life, if he has spoken into, curated your recovery, been a part of your restoration process, we just ask that you come and have fun. There's going to be dancing, there's going to be food. You're going to see Dave cut up the dance floor in his flashy gold jacket, I hope. Maybe. Do you have anything you'd like to say about that, Dave?
Yes. Is that all right?
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I'll get up there so
Yep.
you can get me on the camera. Thank you. I'm so proud of Joel and the work that he's doing. Joel and Rachel have been the ideal fit for this position, and I honor him. And just listening to you talk today, it makes me tired, because I realize how much there is to do and how much energy Joel and Rachel have to actually do it. The guy you're looking at right now, Dave, doesn't have that energy anymore, and I'm yet still ready to move forward and let the mission go forward and have God use me in any way he wants to. So you're going to talk about Texas too, I assume. Yeah, so wait till you hear about what's happening this coming week. But yes, my party is going to be on October 7th. It's a Friday night. I want you all to RSV. Bring a guest or two, it's fine. We're not looking for toddlers or kids, but teenagers are fine. Nursing babies, of course. But this is an adult party primarily, and we want to have a lot of fun. It'll be at a dance studio that I joined. There'll be some salsa group instruction, which I think you and your wives will probably enjoy. And there'll also be a couple of dance exhibitions. On top of that, there'll be plenty of good music, plenty of time just to hobnob. There'll be a full open bar if you decide you'd like to drink. There'll be free tacos, and there will be an opportunity to donate to 423. And this will be an eclectic crowd. It won't be just 423 people. This will be my dance community. This will be my friends from 423, donors, contributors, members, past members, current, and my racquetball community, just all kinds of people. I'm expecting several hundred people. It'll be a big deal, a gala event, and a lot of fun, and just come, okay? Yes.
Is there a code for attire?
No attire. This is Portland. you dress cash.
Just have clothes on though. Clothes on.
It's all cash. I got this crazy gold sequin blazer that I bought at the Halloween store.
Yeah.
And it's just the craziest looking
I
thing
love it.
ever.
You look great.
I mean, I look like a. I shouldn't even use the word
No,
here.
don't say it.
Thank you. I look to him for guidance, and I tend to talk too much. Anyway, I'll probably put that on shortly just to wow the crowd for fun, but it will be just great to see you. Okay, so don't miss and fill out an RSVP form.
Yep.
Please.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. And then this next week, Dave and I are both traveling to Texas. We have a number of really high impact meetings with different churches. We're talking with the Southern Baptist Convention about reaching out. They represent thousands of churches, as well as Dave is launching a new group and speaking at 2 different churches about launching. So there's a lot of just movement and generation going on in the Texas area, and we are really excited that God is expanding the borders of 423 again to a vast amount of hurting brothers and sisters. There are plenty of recovery ministries in the world, but there are not enough to reach all the people in the world. And so we will continue to expand our mission to reach as many souls as we can with this message of hope and reconciliation. The next is going to be a short note, but we are moving into our fundraising season. And as you know, we've said before, we are solely driven off of donation, and a lot of you are supporters with monthly giving. I thank you so much for what you do support. We have a lot of needs and we have a lot of goals going forward to provide and spread this message. Dave, Rachel, we're not enough manpower to cover the ground with effectiveness and with quality that we need to. And so we need to bring on a full-time women's director. We need to bring on a full-time next director to handle the influx of the young people coming into this program. We need to be able to pay IT help and not just run off the back of volunteer work, which we have for so long. So we'll be sending out communications about what this next fundraising season will look like, just for volunteer opportunities, to spread the word and to share what we're doing, so that we can try to maximize the work that we're sending out. So just put that on your guys' to-dos. John Fort, you want to come up? So John, today, we this time right here is focused on training. I'll give you the podium if you want to.
I don't need it.
Yeah, okay. Ooh. Okay, better man than I. These times together are specifically for training, and so I just kind of wanted to briefly say why I consider what John is going to be presenting training for you as 423 leaders. This message will not hit all of you because some of you do not have kids. But John is going to be talking about the dynamics of the family system and how to integrate these conversations with the whole age range of our interaction with kids, and how to have these conversations as couples inside of a family relationship. Now, for you single guys, please don't check out and say this isn't for me. You are not just a leader inside of 423. You, as ministers of the gospel of reconciliation, are leaders inside of all community. So inside of your church community, inside of the community that you live in, you are a member of 423 leadership, and you are also a carrier of the gospel of Christ. That makes you a competent leader to teach and to preach and to train. And so my hope for you as a single person, actually that emotionally healthy leadership has a whole section on how a single person can integrate into the community with almost more effectiveness than a married couple can, to minister to families and to minister to all of the conversations that we have in all of the spaces. So this morning I want you to receive, even if you don't have kids, learn these lessons so that you can be an effective leader inside of any community that you step into to effectively minister to the family system. And then as God willing, you step into a family system, you are well trained. So with that, John, the floor is yours.
All right. So before I get started on anything, I'm going to say I have been in recovery for sex addiction for 26 years. I'm one of you. And just to be clear, I know my title is Director of Training, but understand that if you were to, I was a particularly bad case. If you were to take all the sexual sins of everybody in this room except me on one side and mine on the other side, I would outweigh you all. Okay? I promise you that. So I have a lot of humility. I shouldn't be where I'm at. Does that make sense? I don't feel I deserve to be here because of my past. But that's just what God does. He takes the most messed up people and does create it. It's just kind of crazy. So I want to first say that I'm very humbled and honored to be here in front of you. I work for an organization called Be Broken. That's our motto up there, or tagline or whatever, helping men, women, and families move from sexual brokenness to wholeness in Christ, and training others to do the same, which is what I'm doing today. We do not overlap with what you do in any way. We have an intensive for men. It's a 3-day intensive, and people fly from all over the country. We have them in several places in the United States, and then we help them find a support group. We are partnering with 423 because we need more support groups to send men to after they come to us. So as you grow across the United States, you're going to help us a lot. In fact, Joel and Rachel will be meeting our staff later this month. Be Broken's very excited about trying to partner with what you're doing. We do have some stuff for women, but it's very short term for spouses, right? So just so you're aware, we want to partner with you guys as much as humanly possible. We also have a family section, which I'm, in addition to the director of training, I'm the family specialist. We eventually want to hire someone to replace me to take on that hat altogether. But you know, in growing organizations, at first everybody has to wear multiple hats before you get to wear just one, right? So I'm speaking out of two, the family specialist and the director of training right now. People ask what our name is about, what's Be Broken? Well, it's from Psalm 51. a broken spirit and a contrite heart. In other words, God wants us to come to Him and each other in the spirit of humility and brokenness, right? Especially in this kind of topic, sexuality, right? It just works better if we do that. So that's that's where our name comes from. I'm going to talk about three things. First, a review of emotional resilience, which is related to everything you do. All of that relates to everything you guys do. Then we're going to talk about family obstacles. Now, you might not have kids, but you might have younger brothers or sisters. You might have nephews and nieces. You might have, you see what I'm saying? You might have cousins. So probably this affects everybody. There are obstacles within the family system to talking about healthy sexuality. And then finally, what's appropriate? What do you do? What is talking to your kids about sex? What's that about? Okay, starting with emotional resilience. Okay, for women, this can be either way. Our emotions, women spouses come to this with sometimes with their emotions kind of just really out there, right? And so emotions are frightening to them and can be overpowering to them when they're dealing with a betrayal situation. Not always, but these are just generally. Men, at least in my case, came with none. Like I didn't really have feelings. I mean, I just turned them off. I was either mad or depressed. That's all I ever had. And so that's an extreme case, but we're kind of that way. And so in your groups, what you're doing, a huge part of what you're doing is trying to get people to recognize what you feel and what that has to do with your addiction, right? For men, when we were boys, maybe we were ignored, maybe we had family crisis that was traumatic to us. We were made fun of, teased for some kind of reason, and that kind of stuff. We didn't know how to deal with that, or we were sexually abused. All this kind of, these are all ways that shut down our emotions because it's like, this is too much, I'm just turning it off, I'm going to go to porn. And so this is kind of very quickly just some of the situations we find ourselves in. Then somewhere along the line, somebody showed us porn and there it took off. You know, that became the way we dealt with all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go over this again, but basically this is what we end up with when we're little, is we have a negative emotion that causes discomfort. We find pornography or fantasy or masturbation or sex itself, and we use that to when I have this situation happen. But then when we're done, we feel ashamed of what we just did. And then the negative emotion comes back. We didn't really deal with it. We just covered it up. And then it spirals. I'll come back to this a little later on. We learn in groups to talk through those feelings instead of going to whatever sexual thing it was. We'd say, what am I talking about feeling? What am I feeling? Where did it come from? Is this feeling valid? Because some of our feelings, like no one loves me, is not really true, right? And then how do I work through this feeling? We're just screaming through review here. I'm not teaching on this, if that makes sense. Well, women have the same situation, whether they're a spouse or whatever, is they have maybe some neglect in their family. Most women have had some kind of experience with porn. It might have been really negative, but they have experienced it. They've also had trauma of some kind, maybe parents fighting, whatever. And the one thing that women deal with is being sexually objectified, starting quite young. And that affects them a lot. So when a husband's doing something with sex, this stuff all comes back, right, for them. And maybe they didn't look at porn, but maybe for younger women, they got into social media, or whatever. Something like, I don't want to think about this, so I'm going to go distract myself, maybe not with sex, but with something that just pulls me out of this kind of a spiral. Likewise, spouses need to learn to talk through their feelings. What am I feeling? Where did it come from? Is this feeling valid? In addition, they say, what can I control? When you're in a relationship that your spouse is doing something inappropriate, what can I not control? And then what am I going to do? So there's some slight variation here with spouses. Now, I know I'm oversimplifying this, but this is just kind of quick review. So that's my super fast review, and why am I talking? You'll see why this is related to what I'm talking about. Because this is how feelings have to do with addicts and spouses of addicts. That really plays into what we need to talk to our kids about. Okay, so when I was in recovery for sexual addiction 26 years ago, my daughter my first kid had just been born, and the first thing that happened, my therapist said, You don't know what you're feeling or what to do about it. That's what we're gonna work on first. Therefore, I knew, even before anything, I need to teach my kids how to feel and what to do with those feelings. That is the foundation for everything. And Joel brought up the emotionally healthy leader kind of thing. It's everything. In fact, I tell parents, this is what we get a call from Be Broken. My 15-year-old's binging on porn, and I found he'd been doing it since he was 12. What do I do? And the first question I ask is, I've learned over the years, do you talk with your kid about feelings very often? No. Okay, I don't want you to talk with your kid about sex or porn at all for 2 months. I'll just forget that. You've looked at porn for how many years? Another couple months ain't gonna hurt anything. Now, I want you to talk about feelings for 2 months. I'm gonna teach you how to do that. And that sounds backwards. I'm gonna explain why that's true later. Okay, family obstacles. What are some obstacles? When a kid does something sexually inappropriate, some kind of problematic sexual behavior, sometimes the response the parent doesn't know how to do is kind of get them in trouble or that kind of thing, okay? And we do that because of our past shame from our own past, right? When we catch a kid looking at porn, this can be the reaction sometimes. But that reaction comes out of our past and our trauma. So the question to you is, why is it common for parents to respond in anger when they discover their child's been doing something sexually inappropriate? Discuss that really quick among yourselves, and then I want to hear some answers back. Pause and discuss it.
I feel like you go to anger, you don't know how to communicate otherwise.
To me, society's changing.
Yeah.
They weren't,
I think there's an anger.
parents didn't bring it, just wasn't brought up to them, they didn't bring it up.
Shame comes with knowledge.
And the parents didn't bring it up. You ask about sex, they go bee sting, tell you that this is birds and bees, bee sting, birds crap on the head.
With that
That's what I
internal
know.
goal of this we shouldn't be doing this, where our knee-jerk reaction is to, this is bad, this is bad, 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 right?
It's really easy to be angry.
So it is the.
Okay, let me pull you back just for a second.
So it's kind of a shame thing.
Let me hear a couple answers that you got that came up out of your group.
You're kind of bad.
Why do parents react in anger?
Shame.
They're ashamed of themselves or their kid.
Themselves.
It's the innate knowledge that this is wrong, this is bad.
I think there's something more though, is fear. You know, like a lot of parents love their kids.
And they're afraid?
They're afraid their kid's gonna fall down the same path of shame that they did, so they try to control it with anger.
Yeah. There's another really big reason is that the parents, go ahead.
They weren't, to me, parents weren't, sex is a whole new thing, really, in our society. Parents just weren't given the tools to deal with some of the children's stuff.
Right. So who are they
Because-
really mad at?
Themselves.
Parents are mad at themselves because I should have seen this coming. Well, the anger is actually at ourselves as parents because I thought I was, sometimes they're doing it, does that make sense? We're going to get the next one here. You need to support your child or your brother or your sister or your cousin or your nephew or your niece, not react to your own past. You need to invite them into your calm, not join them in their chaos. Because a kid getting caught using porn, they're in chaos. What they need at that second, they know it's wrong, they don't need to know that.
Yeah.
They need to know, I am where the calm is. Otherwise, there will be no conversation about sex that they'll take part in. When a child struggles with sexuality, it is not a moral problem. This is hard for Christians to get. They are not monsters. We had a mom call and said, my son is 12, we keep talking and he says he doesn't want to do it again, but then he does it again. He's just a monster. No. No child is emotionally prepared to resist what pornography has become. It is completely unrealistic to expect a 12-year-old not to seek out pornography when they know it's there. Curiosity about sex is God-given. We just have not given them a God-given way to satisfy that curiosity, an appropriate way, right? So these are things we've got to remember, a 12-year-old is not an adult, and they're not an addict. They might even be binging, it's a different animal, okay? So we have to kind of keep that in mind. When they're looking at porn, it means they have questions or they're running from pain. If you think about that, now you know what the solution is. Okay? The solution is not how to make them stop looking at porn. It's solve this problem. Okay? So the summary for overcoming obstacles: react to your child, not your own past. That's way easier to say than to do. I know as a parent. You did not manage your sexuality perfect, and neither will your children, or your little brother, or your little sister, or your cousin, or niece, or nephew. Become your child's ally in navigating sexuality in a God-honoring way. That is the role of us with our children we're in the lives of. It's kind of a paradigm shift in that way. Oh wait, before I get to talking to my main presentation, I just wanted to say, first of all, I've known Dave for quite a while. Not super well, but I've known him for quite a while. And about 423, I get 423's newsletter. Joel goes to my church, and you guys are incredibly lucky, fortunate that Joel and Rachel will be leading 423. I am really excited about that. Dave, you could not have a better couple. I'm really, really excited for you guys.
Agreed.
Wanted to say that. The other thing, I don't know if you even knew this, but Joel, when he was young, used to be in a rock band. And I don't mean it, I mean like they were on the radio rock band, Christian rock band. My daughter, when she was a teenager, it was her favorite band, and she went to all their concerts when they were local. In fact, my daughter still has earrings with guitar picks with the name of the band he was on, that he was in. So I didn't know Joel then, but I knew about the band, and I went and saw them anyway. So the whole thing, kind of a little fun side note there. And I am really into. And they were rock. I'm really not like this namby-pamby stuff that they have today for Christian stuff. So I'm a little rocker, just so you know. So just wanted to have that little aside. Okay, let's talk about how do we talk about kids. I'm mainly going to be giving you stuff to do. I'm not going to do a whole lot of big background on why and all that kind of stuff like that. The presentations I'm giving normally take 4 hours, and I've got one. So I'm going to cut right to like do this. Does that make sense? Not a ton of background. We sort of already gave some background to that. Okay, this is normally what we think of when we think about talking with our kids about sex, right? So what I'm going to try to show you is how not to let this happen. All right?
Thank you.
There are 6 kinds of conversations to have with kids.
Do you guys want the lights turned off? So
That might help a little.
Yeah, go ahead. There are 6 kinds of conversations to have with kids. And we're going to walk through them. And I don't mean you have each one time. You have all of them a whole bunch of times, but there's an order. So we're going to kind of go through this. Okay, we're going to go through, these are the 6 conversations we're going to go through. At the end, you're going to get this handout that has a summary, so you don't need to take a ton of notes. Don't, like when you see the name of a book or something, don't write it down. You're going to get that. Okay? Okay, first of all, feelings and emotions. Now, normally when I'm talking, I haven't done this preamble, and I say, you may be wondering why we're talking about feelings and emotions when I thought we were talking about how do you talk to your kids about sex. There's 2 reasons, and I've kind of already summarized this, but there's 2 reasons why this is so important. Number 1, talking about sex is really personal. If you wait till a kid's 12 and start talking to them about sex and porn, that picture you saw going, is what will happen. Talking about feelings is the training ground for you and the kids to learn how to talk about personal things before you talk about sex. Okay, so you start this at 3, 4, 5 years old. And we have some tools to help you do that. The second reason is, as you already know, The number one reason kids get messed up in their sexuality is they don't know what to do with their feelings. It is pointless to talk to them about resisting porn when you have not talked about this, because they have no tools. Now, I doubt any of you were trained about how to deal with your feelings at 5, 6, 7 years old. So you don't even know how to teach this. So you will learn with your children the same resource that you're using to teach them, you will learn from at the same time. And that's okay, right? So the first thing you might do is feelings charts. Just give some ideas. And so this little guy, that kid you see down there, actually I know him. And when he was 4, we went to his house, our church community, had a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of friends. And they had this feelings chart posted on his refrigerator, because his mom was doing this training with him. And he comes up, I was standing nearby, and he says, Mom, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Now, how many times do 4-year-olds use that word? They do when you do this, is you use these charts to say, look, point to the thing you're feeling. And they learn words, and they can then describe better what they're feeling. That's powerful, okay? And so you teach them more than happy, sad, and mad. Really young, you can do this, okay? They get a little older, you can use something like these, they're called care tags, emotional care tags. They don't have to be shaped like this. This is Jody Smith, is a therapist who works with messed up kids, came up with this. So a little older, it's like, when you cry, you would ask them, what is it you're feeling normally when you cry? Well, this kid said, I'm feeling disappointed. What do you really need when you're disappointed? I need a hug. So this way, in the future, when this kid starts feeling like crying, it's like, well, not that crying's bad, but it's like, well, what am I feeling? Oh, I remember I talked to Mom about this. It's like, maybe I'm disappointed, and so I can walk up and say, Mom, I need a hug. When I hit my brother or sister, what am I usually feeling? And this kid said overwhelmed. It could be jealous. It could be all kinds of things, but it's up to the kid. What do you really need? Well, I need space. And so like that little boy I told you about, they can go to Mom and say, I'm feeling, or Dad, I'm feeling overwhelmed, and then we can help them. We've already talked about this. Find a place to kind of be where it's a little quieter for a while. You see how powerful that is? When they get older, you expand the number of core feelings from mad, sad, and happy to some other things like that. And you use tools like a feelings wheel to teach them much more detailed ways of describing how they're feeling. And I'm not going to go into all this right now. Okay? So these are things you just do with your kids, and you keep coming back as they get older and doing more advanced things. You see? And it helps us too, as parents, helps everybody. So let's do some resources. We developed, matter of fact, we just got them, a game called Honest Talk the Game. And it has cards, I'll talk about other cards. It has all these charts and stuff that you saw, and it has cards about feelings and get to know me. There's other people who have like conversation cards you pull out and it starts a conversation. We've turned it into a game, and kids will want to do it more. Okay, so this is grade school age. This is what this is for. When kids get to be adolescents, we need to connect feelings and sexual temptation. I'm going to come back to this a little later and talk about how to use this. Okay? We also have come up with an online course. My main job is building online courses, and this has for little kids, for middle kids, and older kids, a whole bunch of things, and you sit down with your kids and they watch a video together and then do what they're supposed to do. So again, when they're little, there's a section for little kids that they don't watch because they're too young to care to watch. And they're like 3, 4, 5 minutes long, the videos are not long. But so we've tried to make some tools that you can just use immediately. You don't have to like do a bunch of background stuff. Okay, we could go on about feelings, but let's get on to the next one. So, explaining God's design for sex to our kids. I want to pause a second here. When you were a kid, what source did you learn most of what you understood about sex? What was your main source of information about sex? Talk about that at your table. When you were a kid, where was your main source of information about sex?
Got like the talk from the parents and I was like, so one time, and I gave my little brother to talk about kind of
And I think because of our age spectrum was going to be different. You didn't have access to what we had.
the school bus.
It was actually right before 12, 13 years old.
Young and older kids.
That was really helpful.
Definitely.
But there was not all the emotional stuff talked about, like before.
Yes, cousins, I learned some stuff from my cousins.
My dad showed me a picture in the second PJ pretending
Right.
of tiny little sperms and under a microscope, and it was all black and white. This is when we didn't have internet.
So no influence
And
through
he
your
said,
family?
well, that's
No,
basically,
no, we didn't talk about anything.
well, they come out, where,
Yeah.
well, they come out of the man's penis, they go in
My
the
parents are extremely depressed
body.
and emotional.
And my big question was,
Everything was
so how do
So what
those
source
get
would
from
you use?
you
the internet.
to mom?
Yeah.
Well, that's for another talk. And I never had that other talk.
Really?
Yeah, he never initiated it again. And I was about to go ask
Yeah, I
him.
learned about that.
Yeah. Explain it in a very logical way.
Yeah.
When I was a kid,
Yeah,
so
I learned about it
sneaked over to my
from the
grandma's
neighbor's trash can.
foster care family.
He threw his
Watched
Playboys out.
quite a few movies when I was probably 10, 11, 12. I would be like Cinemax, HBO. It's-
Yeah, I discovered porn in written, printed.
Okay,
Yeah, that's all we had.
yeah. So let's hear a few answers. What are some answers where people learned the most they learned about sex?
Internet.
I don't mean correct information, but internet,
Internet. Public school system.
school,
Peers.
peers.
Movies.
I learned it from older teenagers around.
Right.
Okay. All right. Let's hit the lights and move on here. Oops. Okay, so what we need to understand is, and this is difficult in Christianity, is we do not need to be ashamed of what God created. We act like God created the human bodies and Satan came by and slapped on the genitals. That's not how it worked. God created all of us, right? Talking to your kids, teaching kids what God's design for sex is, including the mechanics of sex, protects them. It does not ruin their innocence. If you do not teach, somebody or something else will. Just as you guys said.
Right.
Wouldn't it have been better for you to learn what sex was and all about it from something other than the source that you learned it from? Okay. Okay, so what do we use? Well, there is a series of a book by Dan and Brenna Jones I don't have up here. What's it called, Dave, again?
It's called God's Design for Sex.
It's a four book series you do different ages. I'm gonna show you an alternative one these are a little bit newer, is all. But it's still a great one. So God made boys and girls, that's about gender. In today's reality, you better be talking about this before they learn about it somewhere else. So this is preschool. God made your body, that's gonna talk about body parts and that kind of stuff in an appropriate way for preschool kids. Jim Burns, for ages 6 to 9, How God Makes Babies. This is the mechanics of sex. Today, children need to know the mechanics of sex by 8 years old. Now, let me tell you, people are like, okay, hang on a second. In the Old Testament, how all Moses writing out all his millions of laws, a whole bunch of them are about sex. I don't have a slide here for them, but there are slides about rules and guidelines around nudity, around menstruation, around wet dreams, around homosexuality and bestiality. I mean, just all kinds of, just a bunch of stuff. Then at the end of that, God tells Moses, get everybody together, including the children. And in fact, if there are any strangers passing that live that aren't Jewish, their kids have to come too. It says this in the Bible, and read everything to them. So they took little kids and told them all of that. Okay? And then in Joshua, when Moses dies, once again, God says, get everybody together and read that again, and do not leave out anything, and make sure the little ones are there too. The Old Testament commanded parents to teach little kids about sex. They were not afraid of that. We are the ones who are weird about it. Okay? Not the Bible. When kids get older, Josh and Luke and Tricia Gilkerson are big homeschool. He used to work for Covenant Eyes, but now he runs this homeschooling thing. And they basically have these 3 books here. The first one about that's the mechanics of sex stuff. And then these are puberty and then dating relationships and that kind of stuff. And this is like a school curriculum, but you do one lesson a week. It's all right in there, but it's all with the Bible, all biblical references put in, and kind of putting a God focused on these conversations. Again, you don't have to come up with this stuff, you just do it. Okay, you get your kid, hey, this week we're gonna do this, and you don't have to think about what to say. The Honest Talk game thing, there are the section of questions about sex cards. This is made for grade school age, like 8 and up. And you don't start with these, you start with the feelings one, but like at third or fourth time you play, you can bring these in if you want to. And this is, this came from some parent focus groups we did, and they said they wanted this. Wasn't our idea, so I said, okay, we'll make it. So we have these. Jim Burns, the author of 2 of the books, said this: why is knowing how sex works not innocent? Seeing hardcore pornography ruins innocence, not knowing God's design for sex. That's pretty brilliant. I want you to watch this video of a local man talking. He's talking about what happened with his son. He's talking about an 11-year-old. Oops, we got volume.
Some distance from my son. And I asked myself, why was that? What was going on with him? And I tried my hardest to do things that he liked, to draw him out, to have questions for him, to ask him questions. And I just noticed that he was emotionally withdrawing. And I found myself really struggling with how to connect. Well, a couple months into that time frame, I had looked on his phone and found that he was looking at sex, sexual things. He was trying to figure out the questions of life around sexuality. And so I felt like a less of a man. I felt fearful. I felt anxiety. Did I let him down? Did I not address this soon enough? I didn't even know these questions existed. He was still preteen. So I didn't know like what was really going on and where I had let him down. Well, I picked up Father-Son Accountability by John, and we started going through the chapters of it. And what I anticipated a conversation around sexuality to cause friction and division amongst us, like me and my son, I realized this was a conversation that actually brought us together, that it unified us, that he felt safe to ask the questions that he needed to, that he felt confident that he could come to Dad and not to the neighbor boy or to Google or whatever for some of these answers. And so it became a real defining moment for he and I as we wrestle with the teenage years. And today we're actually super close because of that conversation coming out. The questions that he asks, the ideas that he has, he's more likely to bring those to me than to go somewhere else today. And so I'm very thankful for that.
So the point I want you to get is, we did a bunch of surveys with parents to say, why are you afraid to talk to your kids about sex? And one of the big ones was, I don't want my kid to find out my past. What he found out was, talking with his kid about his past, and because that's what the book brings out, is what made him and his son closest together. The very thing that we're afraid the most of talking about is what does the highest benefit to the parent-child, brother to brother, brother to sister, cousin, nephew. It makes those relationships much stronger. Okay. Okay, next conversation. Preparing for exposure. We got to remember that porn and that kind of stuff is just one. There's also sexual jokes and sexual things that kids say to each other. Being objectified. This is more girls than boys, but boys can be sexually objectified too. Of course, we have to watch out for predators and stuff like that, but there's also erotic literature. You know, I remember reading erotic stories. I remember in junior high somebody passing a novel around that had this super explicit sex scene described in it. And because it was a book, the teachers didn't know, and like literally kids just passed it around to read. Okay, so we got to remember, it ain't just like the stuff on we think of as porn. So how do we help? Well, there's a book called God Made All of Me for Preschool. It's about, you know, protecting your body, not letting you let people touch you in certain places, that kind of thing. Good Pictures, Bad Pictures talks about that, exposure, what to do, and that kind of thing. We made a course for older kids, that facilitates conversations. Again, you watch a little video and then talk about it with you and your kid or your cousin or whoever. We designed this to respond to parents that, hey, my kid's looking at porn, what do I do? But what parents have told us, once a kid reaches puberty, they need to go through this, boy or girl. Okay, and so that's not our word, but that's what parents have said, because it does open up a whole bunch of other conversations just about this whole topic. The main thing is you tell your kids, if you see or hear something, close your eyes or your ears, get away, come tell me, and you will not be in trouble. Now that last part you have to re-emphasize and re-emphasize and re-emphasize, because what's going to happen? Their kid shows them something, and they don't look away very fast. The friend starts telling a sexual joke, and they listen to all of it. Now, if they do dare come tell you, or tell their parent, what they're worried about is I'm going to get in trouble because I didn't get away fast enough, right? So what must happen is reward the honesty, period, end of story. I'm so glad you told me. Because then they'll come back and tell you again. If they get in trouble for telling you, they will never, ever tell anyone again when that happens. The first time my son confessed to me that he had seen porn, told me and my wife, it must have been the Holy Spirit or something, because instead of, I was freaked out, but instead, my first words out of my mouth, and I feel like it was God put them there, is, I'm so glad you told me. And he told me 2 years later, he came back to that, he said, if you would have gotten mad at me, or if you would have said, kids do that, I would have never talked to you again. It's not just getting in trouble, it's like you are honoring the moment, and I'm so glad you told me. You're not in trouble. Okay? All right, dealing with temptation. So, this is a conversation we don't think about very often. We talk about sexual temptation to both boys and girls. Yeah, well, what is it real? It's a real thing, so let's talk about it. These are a couple of books. They're not Christian books, but for really little kids, there just aren't any that I could find, and this is the best I could do. I brought copies of these, and you're going to get these on your thing. This is for little kids. I wanted that for a little kid. The difference between wanting and needing is kind of the beginning of teaching temptation, right? Again, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures talks about the thinking brain and feeling brain, which is actually the limbic system and prefrontal cortex, how they kind of get in an argument. That's what temptation that's part of the physical part of temptation. Does a really good job of explaining that. And in Honest Talk, we have some discussion guides for older kids on that same topic. I'm going to go over this thing with you now. And this is kind of review. So every kid is going to see pornography at some point in time. Just going to happen. If they're really little, they might be grossed out about it, but maybe not. At some point in time, though, they're going to become sexually aroused when that happens. When you are sexually aroused, dopamine enters your brain, like floods your brain. And one of the purposes of dopamine, my background, by the way, is biology and that kind of stuff. So when dopamine enters the brain, it is to laser focus you, in this case, on sex, and take everything else out of the way. Its purpose is to help reproduction happen, right? So that means any feeling you're having will then be pushed away. It's like gone. So negative feelings as a side effect of being sexually aroused go away. Later on, something bad happens. Maybe mom and dad get in a fight. A lot of time a kid, this could be, actually we're showing a boy, but this can be a girl too, right? They run to their room and they're like feeling just super anxious. Oh no, what's going to happen? I don't know this is really a scary situation. And their brain says, hey, I know something that will make us feel better. Now maybe they don't have access to porn. Maybe they fantasize, maybe they masturbate, whatever, but they're doing something sexual. They become sexually aroused and their negative feelings vanish. Now, once this starts repeating, you get this picture that we already showed you. We start using something sexual to manage that discomfort. Now, our brains are designed to protect us, and eventually this will happen. Anything happens, the brain doesn't want you to feel discomfort, so it short circuits this thing. Anything that happens that might cause you to feel a negative emotion, your brain immediately makes you start thinking of sex. Now the problem when the kid gets to this point, which I remember being at this point, is what is wrong with me? All I ever do is think about sex. Okay, they don't understand that this is what's happening. And this just starts spinning on its own. You don't even need any new negative emotion because the shame is a negative emotion. So this just starts spinning out of control on its own. What we want is, back to the feelings, is to way before they get old enough to be sexually tempted, is to start teaching them to come to us and talk what happened, how do you feel, what can we do about that? And then we resolve the emotion. It doesn't mean we make the circumstances go away, but I know what to do with this feeling. Now I'm going to let you watch a video of someone talking about this. But we need the voice.
First started sort of quasi-accountability type thing, we realized that when I was walking home from school, on the walk home, I started having problems with like temptation. I'd be tempted to want to fantasize or to think about sexual things, and I'd come home and I'd be like, I don't know what's going on, because like, why is it that when I'm walking home, I have this problem? And so I'd come home and talk to my dad about it, and kind of going in depth, and he'd ask me questions, and I'd kind of talk about it and figure it out. We eventually figured out that what it is that while I was walking home, I would feel like I was alone, because there's this period of, because I'm a big extrovert, I love talking, I love having human interaction. I mean, even sitting over there, I have a hard time not whispering to somebody else's ear, but I apologize about that. But, and so, that time walking home, even for 20, 30 minutes, was enough time where I started feeling like I was alone, and I had no one to talk to. And so, I had this thing in my mind that, well, fantasy makes me feel better. And so, I'd want to go to that. And so, eventually, in doing accountability, and working with him, my dad and everything, we found out that what I could do is that while I was walking home, I would call my dad. And he'd be at work, so sometimes he wouldn't pick up, sometimes he would, we talk about it, but even when he didn't pick up, I'd leave him a message. I'd say, hey, I'm walking home, and I wouldn't even have to say that I was having any temptation. I could just say, hey, I'm walking home now, everything just calling to kind of check in and see how you're doing, that sort of thing. And then I'd get home, and it's like that was enough that I knew when I get home, he'd talk to me. I knew when I got home, he'd ask me, how it was walking home, how my day was at school, and all that sort of thing. And so that was what we kind of figured out together, what worked for me.
If you didn't figure out, that was my son. And what he was describing happened at 14. At 14 years old, we've been talking about feelings and the connection to temptation since he was 12. But when a kid goes through puberty, here's a side, I don't have a slide for this. The year they go through puberty, all that's out the window. Everything is a trigger. I mean, taking a shower is an erotic event for a kid new to puberty. So it's like, you don't need feelings, that first year of puberty is just like, everybody hang on. We're gonna try to get through this, okay? So he had to get through that. But then it's like he started putting together, when I feel alone, that is the feeling. That's my core emotional trigger. That's my main thing. I need to know what to do. I need a plan for that. So what he did was, he didn't wait till he felt tempted. He did not even wait till he felt alone. Walking home, he had a pretty long walk, makes me feel alone, so I will always text or call my dad. And that solved the problem. Wouldn't it have been nice if we had that when we were teenagers?
Yeah.
So, this is the beauty of this kind of work. It's like, man, we can do something about this. So anyway, but that means we're going to have to teach our kid how to figure out their core emotional trigger. Now here's the key. You will only learn your kid's core emotional trigger when they mess up. Now, maybe if the kid doesn't have an issue with that, but they have an issue with anger. So what's the core emotional trigger to anger? You say, this is not just about sex. All right, my son mentioned being alone. Mine, in the past in particular, was failure. When I perceived that I failed at something, that was my trigger. Okay, so we have to help them. So here is, remember I showed you the emotional care plan? This is that walk for that. So this particular kid says, the biggest thing that happens to them is when they feel like a failure or they feel like they're not being heard. When that happens, they have a tendency to look at porn or masturbate to fantasy. Now this can be girls, more so today than it used to be. When I feel like a failure, I can write in my journal to God. Now, not all kids would do that, but some kids, this one did. Or when I'm feeling not heard, I can text my dad or my brother or my whoever, it doesn't matter, just whoever, if they have a phone or whatever. So this is an example of them working it out. Okay, we have stuff that teach you how to do that with kids. But you must also have your own. It is not fair for your kid or cousin or whoever you're doing this with to have their confessing to stuff and you are not. Now I know in your teenage boy things, you don't do that because of legal things like that. This is not for that. This is parent and kid kind of stuff. Okay? Now, we do this for moms too. And let's just say, whether it's a man or a woman, as an adult, it's just like porn and sexual things just isn't a problem anymore. Okay? Then you think of something that is. a problem for you, how you negatively react. And here's what I tell parents. If you're not sure what your problem is, ask your child. They'll be happy to tell you what it is you need to work on, okay? And so then you have yours and they have theirs. And now this is key to point out. Your child is never your accountability partner. We have accountability, and your kid needs to know that. That's really important. But you are the child's accountability partner. You still share, but you don't put this burden of they've got to figure out what to do. That's your adult group. Okay, so there's that division. However, not all this whole process I just outlined, not all kids are going to do that. My daughter would have laughed at me if I said we're going to meet once a week, or my wife would have said we're going to talk about all that stuff. That just wouldn't happen. It depends on the personality of the kid. But you still talk about them. You still identify what feelings cause problems. You maybe don't write it down. You still identify what you negatively do sometimes, and what's a better way to react at. And then you talk about it every once in a while when you're driving in a car or whatever, okay? Another key is, when you have these discussions, don't be sitting facing each other. That's just too weird. Be facing the same way. Yeah, it's, with kids, just don't. My son, I always took him into the backyard and we worked on gardening. And my son, to this day, still jokes, yeah, when Dad said, let's go work in the yard, I knew what was coming. We're going to talk about this. So, all right. Now, processing exposure. I'm getting almost done here. So something's happened. They've seen something, they saw something, they did something, whatever. I want to pause and talk about purity, the idea of purity. For a long time, in all cultures, water has been used as a symbol of purity. You have dirty water, you have pure water, right? But let me tell you, as a scientist, water is never found in pure form in nature. Even every raindrop has at least one speck of dirt in the middle of it. If you don't believe me, go look at your car after a rain. Okay, the thing is that water has to stick to something to condense. And when there's no water vapor, no drops of water, it has to find dirt, dust to stick to. And then it builds up on top of that, right? So there is no such thing as pure water anywhere in nature. You have to remove the contaminants. So our kids are being contaminated all the time. The idea that a kid is pure is nonsense. There is no such thing. By the time a kid is 10 years old, they are sexually contaminated somehow already, always. Okay? So look at all the things it's talking about up there. Attention seeking is that this is something that girls will do, is they'll put naked pictures of themselves up because that's what you have to do to get attention in 7th grade. Okay? So this stuff contaminates them. It makes the inside dirty. And so what we want to do is to purify that. So it's not trying to keep your kid pure. It's trying to continually remove the contaminants to purify them.
Wow, what a concept.
Okay? We use a bathtub to clean the outside of our kids. We use talking to clean the inside out, to take the impurities out. No parent of a 6-year-old would ever see the kid comes in and they're covered in dirt, and they go take a bath, and they come out and they're squeaky clean. No parent would ever say, that's it, you're clean, you never have to take a bath again. The same is true of this, because there's always impurities being added to them. So what do you talk about? You say, what have you been seeing and hearing? What mistakes have you made? How did those things happen? How do you feel about that? I saw this at school, or a kid said this at school. How do you feel about that? What do you think about that? Do you have any questions for me? Even when a kid sees pornography, it often brings up new questions about sex. Let's get them from them instead of having them go back and look for the answer to that. What can we do next time better? Let's pray about this. Where is the lecture in that?
Not there.
It's not there. This is just asking questions. This is not a kid in the support, this is not an adult addict in the support group, this is a child. Okay? Different animal. Okay, so now, the last thing I want to talk about is leveraging your story. Many people, even men in support groups, are like, I can't tell my kid about this. I can't tell you how often. Let me tell you a real story, not from 423, this was another organization. I was meeting with some dads who were in support. In fact, they were support group leaders. And these dads were older than some of you guys were, and all their kids were like 11 to 14. And one dad was complaining about his son. We were talking about something else, but he was complaining about his son's 12. Like, yeah, my son, he just keeps getting into porn. And I talk to him and try to explain to him, he just gets this blank face. And I said, well, why do you tell him about your story, your struggle? Oh, no, he doesn't know I have a problem. He thinks I go to a Bible study. Your story is powerful. It is the most powerful thing you have. Your failures, your sexual failures are what qualify you to talk. Because we interviewed teenagers too and said, why do you not talk to your kids about sex, your parents about sex? To Christian teenagers, and this was an anonymous, we asked them a whole bunch of questions and some were multiple choice, but this one was just a blank. Why do you not talk about your sex with your parents? And every single one, boy and girl, said only one of these two things. They will not understand how I feel, or I will get in trouble for what I say, or even for what I ask. How do you prove that you understand how they feel? You tell them your broken story. Okay, so if somehow you were a person, which I know you're in this room, who would be in this room, never had any brokenness in your sexuality at all, you managed everything perfectly, nothing right, then you should not talk to your kids about sex. Because they will not relate to you. The leverage, the bridge to bonding to your kid is your brokenness. Be broken, that's where we come from. Now, we partner with Focus on the Family. And when I was putting this presentation before them, the head of counseling, Jeremy Keaton, said, breaks. If you're going to tell parents to tell their story, you need to give them some conditions. Because that can go horribly wrong if you don't have. So this is from Focus on the Family. You must be working on your own issues. Well, you're all here, so we don't have to worry about that. You're already working on your own issues. That's good. There are some parents who, like, the dad's still binging on porn all the time, not in the group, hasn't addressed it at all, and the son comes and talks about porn. That's not going to help at all, okay? No secrets from your spouse. Meaning, don't ever say, yeah, let me tell you something, but don't tell mom. Not okay. Now, what I mean is, but let me explain something here. I don't mean that your son tells your daughter, whoever, tells you something that happened to them, and it reminds you of the similar thing that happened to you, but you haven't thought to tell your spouse. That doesn't mean you can't share that. It just means, look, tell your spouse afterwards, right? You know what I'm saying? Using everything is go ahead and tell them. But there's no expectation that's okay. There's no expectation that you don't tell them. Okay? No inappropriate details. Don't paint a picture in their head. They don't need that. Okay? Just broad categories. I looked at porn. I masturbated. I fantasized. That kind of stuff. You don't need to go any more depth than that. And finally, watch their reaction. If their eyes get big and their face turns white and their mouth drops open, stop talking. Okay? Because they're freaking out. You can come back to it later. Okay, these are the only conditions. I like this group because I know you're all working on your issues. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be working on them, right? Okay. I talk to most of the families I talk to. They haven't started working on their issues, and it's like, duh. It's like so. Yeah, it gets to be a problem. Okay, let me give you some examples. I know a family last year, or not long ago. 6-year-old daughter was in school. And a little boy decided to play show and tell and dropped his pants in front of everybody, right? So then they have a discussion to have, the school called home, all the homes and told them this. So she had to talk with her daughter. It's like, well, if something like that happened to you, then it's like, this is leveraging your story. Hey, that happened to me one time, and I felt this way. You make it really short. How did you feel? Then you start talking about that. Because do you see the leverage, the building the bridge there? Okay? Maybe you want to warn them. I told my son at 11, hey, some days, now I would say, I'll start a lot younger today. You're going to have friends try to show you porn. Let me tell you that the first time it happened to me. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, this is going to happen to you. Someone's going to try to show you. One of your friends is going to try to show you pornography. That's going to happen. Let me tell you the first time, because by saying that, it like changes the whole flavor. Okay. when they get caught, or you, even if you catch them, or they confess, you build that bridge and say, hey, when I was your age, I did a similar thing. And I felt this way. Make it short, and then you're just building the bridge, and then talk to me about how you felt. How this happened? How are you feeling right now? That kind of, the questions that we talked about before. So this is, it's a bridge between you and the kid. We're gonna hear a kid talk about this and get the audio on.
What I want to know is that my parents have gone through the same things as me. Knowing my parents have gone through similar things makes me feel less abnormal. Knowing that they went through and maybe got through what I'm going through gives me more hope.
So that's from okay. We're gonna actually stop and do this on your table. What was your first exposure to pornography? How old were you? How did it happen? What feelings? Maybe conflicting feelings did you have? Pause and talk in your table. And then we'll hear just a couple examples.
I was at a friend's house, and the family had moved into the house, and the people who were there before left some porn behind, some printing. So it was maybe 11, 12. And
I've heard a lot.
one of the kids, the other family was also
Kids from school.
he had previously found it, and
I
he
think
showed
I
it.
was the youngest.
That was
like 8.
that was my first exposure.
Up to 10, we randomly found a magazine on the side of the road.
It was.
And like, so they went to the community
It was,
report.
I'd never seen something
I
like that
had
before.
hidden.
It was,
How did you know? That it had to be.
it was exhilarating, exciting, all this stuff.
I was wrong.
And over the years I've worked through
trouble,
shades
something,
and stuff to just put out that, and
that we all knew
just like that.
was
And now I'm
keep
able to
it
do that,
hoarded
so, you know,
and
work on design and
keep it
all that,
hidden
but for the longest
and,
time,
didn't
I never would have
know
admitted
why.
those
Didn't feel a certain way.
exhilarating
Right after my
feelings.
7th birthday, I was walking down the street with my brother in our neighborhood. And
I literally
neighborhood
remember
and
an age because
foundation of
I
an old street
grew up in a
street
military
access
family,
garage
traveled
with
a
a
lot.
paper bag.
So when I was
Drizzling out, I walked over,
5
picked
years
it,
old,
and there
it
was
was
5 or
Greenville,
6
Mississippi, and I walked into
magazines in
the
there, and I
bathroom,
picked
my
one
dad
up,
was there shaking,
and
my
I
mom
opened it up, and I was like,
and she
instantly my heart
watched
started
our
pounding.
film.
I was like, I looked, because my brother wasn't standing with me, he was walking outside, and I immediately turned and looked to see if he had seen it. Because I instinctually knew
piqued my interest.
this is forbidden, right? This is forbidden.
Or sexual.
And so I stuck it back in the bag
I was exhilarated.
and then caught up with him. He didn't even know that I had seen it. Fully knowing I'm
I definitely had the exhilarated.
that was my first exposure.
The first time I saw porn, it was my friend's house. I was like, I knew it was wrong. I mean, no, it wasn't. I told my parents about it. I was more conflicted.
What, how old?
In that situation, I wasn't exhilarated. I was like crazy. But all around in other situations, I saw something.
So somebody would have made him off of
Somebody
the
made it, and I can't remember.
barely see her.
I don't think I
And I was like,
I don't remember
the book at school, not like my more exhilarated.
I honestly,
You know, it's interesting. I feel like growing up, I never knew how to like express my feelings. I feel like people would always say me or my family are weird, you know, and just kind of things I accept about myself. I feel like not understanding that always created the platform for trying to go really good in such a place.
This was all like today, like you can see bikinis and skin everywhere.
I don't know exactly how old I was. I think it's like
But there also wasn't like mass mainstream sexualized women everywhere. Billboards everywhere.
Didn't go tell anyone about it because I was just like, you know, I thought I discovered some like secret dark corner that was like unknown to me. I had no idea. I had no idea that it was like a widespread thing. I never shared with my peers. I never had a peer like show me porn. I felt like dirty and ashamed, but excited and exhilarated about it. It was just like, like 21, not talking about emotions.
Did you have feelings of shame?
Conflicting like,
No, I
accept
heard
it.
that point, I did,
Accept
I
it.
got grossed out.
I'd say a lot of shame.
Wasn't
Like, I
attracted
think
to
even
the
saying
level.
that's pretty, you know, this idea of why aren't we better? Why haven't these
When I was at, my first experience was at 5 years old. I was outside playing, and I broke a window. Shit. I was staying with me, and her nephew. And he was about 14 years living with her. He caught me when I broke it. That was my first experience sexually. Then,
I was probably, I mean, I've been looking up on my.
I didn't think much about it. I know I did.
As far as, maybe like 14, as far as like.
But I really did not know what had happened.
You're talking about the molestation?
Yes.
How old were you?
5 years
Nobody
old.
gets exposed at that old.
And I didn't realize. I
Way
didn't
younger.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't
I guess I was
know that girls were,
fortunate in that.
you know, at that time, I didn't have a lot of understanding. But I did know that they were hurt. I did not want to know. So I never said it. I was feared for the whipping that I would get for breaking the window. I didn't understand what he'd done to me. Then I'm 8 years old or so, and we started playing with my friends and looking at it, it was so different. So it was a confusing. I never really thought about the
Very exciting. I can remember my heart racing.
when I started
I would have thought
his feelings, and I was like, but wait, that was a
But
guy.
yeah, I remember, yeah.
Has everybody here been
I'm
sure
not-
yet?
Yeah.
So that was.
Yeah. It already helped.
and
Yeah,
it-
yeah.
and it's
All right, let's kind of pull it back
been a lifelong-
here.
My free time.
Lights? Okay, so that is all 6 of the conversations. Now, normally I do more, but when I'm talking to a group like this, I go in more depth. You guys get this so quick because you understand all the implications that a normal audience I would talk to would like not even get. And so I don't need to spend as long connecting the dots for you guys. So this may feel a little overwhelming. There's 6 conversations, but I'm going to make it really, really easy for you. Rather than try to memorize all this stuff, let me just give you a guide. First of all, this is the order of importance to talk. So in other words, if you don't need to worry about talking about dealing with temptations if you've never talked about feelings before. You see the thing? You don't need to worry about your story if you haven't prepared to, that might go along with this. But what I'm saying is you kind of make sure you've done the first one before you go to, started the first one. Not said everything there has to do with it. Okay? So that's the thing I want to say here. Let me go over and see where. So, don't try to figure this out. This is like a map of the whole thing. Here's the conversations. There's your age group. And what to do. So what I tried to do is I've showed you some resources of like what you would use to actually have to help you guide the conversation. This is too complicated. So now Joel, I'm gonna pass these out. You're gonna get one of these. Okay, and as he's passing that out, let's just take an example here. Okay, so let's say you have a preschool kid and you haven't done any of these. Well, I would recommend the course, Family Integrity, Emotional Resilience, because it's one we do, but it helps you give a whole bunch of the stuff that we talked about, including the feelings and all that kind of stuff. But let's say you've already kind of been doing that. Maybe you didn't use this resource, but like that's not so unusual for parents to teach little kids how to feel. But you haven't talked about God's design for sex. Well, then get one of these books by Jim Burns or Marty Mikowski. You see how that works? And so as you go down, you start bringing out these books. Now let me talk about children's books for a second. When you have a children's book like God Made Your Body, that has things like penis and vagina in them, right? You don't put that book in a special place. You put it where all their other kids' books are so they can go get it anytime they want to. That's important. And you can tell them, you can look at it anytime you want to. And don't freak out if you see them looking at it. Okay?
Yeah.
Remember, curiosity is good, not bad. Okay? We Be Broken have these resources. I have them here to, well, the 2 online courses are just on Pure Life Academy. I didn't bring anything to that. pureLifeacademy.org, although that's on the, it should be on the handout. And then there's that game thing. I have all this stuff to look at for you. I have another table here of every single book that I've showed you is here. These we don't have enough to sell, but you can look at them to see if you want to get them or not. The reason why is because we can't buy them, we don't get a discount, and I have to buy them the same price you're buying for, and then like I'd have to sell them for more than you could get them on Amazon, which is stupid. So those are just I don't care if anybody buys anything. I'm not here to sell that. But if somebody was here, so I did bring some of this stuff here, and I don't have cash, but I can take a card, unless you had exact change. And I have the card. I'm really excited about the card game. I just picked that up Monday. You were the first people in the world to see it.
Yes.
Our Texas, we're headquartered in Texas, and they haven't even got theirs yet. I'm going to fly it down there in a week.
What city?
San Antonio is our headquarters. Be Broken has 9 staff. We're all over the country, but our headquarters is in San Antonio. We have like 5 of them are there or something like that. Anyway, that's why nobody's heard of Be Broken up here, because that's why I went up here. Anyway, so we'll have time for you guys to look at that. But before we do, are there any questions at all? I don't have anything else. Is there any kind of question, anything at all? Yeah.
What other languages are the books translated into?
Well, we don't have. The Honest Talk is translated to Marathi for India, which is a weird thing, but that's because they asked us, and so we had an organization take that project on, and India, there's 1,000 copies of that in part of India. But yeah, so we can talk about that later. But everybody wants things in another language. We need help doing that. It's very expensive to get, and it's very hard to get this kind of stuff translated well, accurately, because it's. You have to figure out what word to use in that language and that kind of stuff like that. So, anyway, so yeah, we can work on that. Yeah.
What are benefits and precautions to take for fathers talking to daughters, mothers talking to sons?
We get this a lot from single parents, and this is what I've learned. I've changed my tune on this over the years. This is what I say: whatever the kid is comfortable talking with to whatever parent is fine and good. I know a mother, single mother, she has a 13, 14-year-old son, and like they went through the responding to porn course. He does not have an issue with porn, but she said, I thought that we had already answered all his questions about sex. Part of that course is like prompts them to like, we're gonna have a judgment-free zone right now, judgment-free time zone. What questions do you have about sex? Anything you want. And she said that formula, that statement, which by the way, teenagers told us to say that was another idea. He just started pouring out. She goes, I had no idea he had something, and he is his mom. And so it really doesn't matter, okay? Now, obviously, if you're a man and your daughter is asking questions about menstruation or something, there's like limited information you're gonna have. I'm sorry, well, how can I help you find someone to talk about this with, you know? I mean, there are that kind of thing. But as far as just whatever they want to, whoever they want to talk to, it's better that they talk. Obviously, there are some things that are going to only work with the same gender, but I don't worry about that as much as I used to. Yeah.
You know, one thing I had is I thought this might be really cool to share with one of my brothers or something, because he has kids, and I don't even know a great way. He's not part of 423. He's not part of this whole thing. Like, how do I even?
So here's the deal. It doesn't matter if the parents. Let's just imagine that there's a husband and wife that have never had struggles with this. Okay. They still need to do all of this. This is not about recovery. They need to do all of this, right? So I could just say, you could just say, hey, we went to this training. It was kind of like, how do you prevent these problems? And that's what this is, prevention. And it's like, man, I learned some cool stuff. Can I share with you some things I learned? You know, and see if they're interested in that kind of stuff. We do have, I didn't bring it with me, but October something or rather, I'm doing basically a cut down version of this, just the 6 conversation part. We do a free webinar. I don't know if we're going to do them every month or every quarter, but we're doing one. You could, I don't know how you could get, I mean, if you wanted to give me like your email or something, I could send you the thing and they could decide if they wanted to watch it or not. But it's a live webinar doing the 6 conversations piece, so they could just hear it, and it's, you know, what people want to do. But in the meantime, say, hey, this is cool, this would prevent problems, and like, we need it more than ever with what's going on around our kids today, so that's a thought. Yeah.
Question to you, does your brother know that you're doing this?
No, yeah, I mean, there's a
Oh,
lot
okay.
that, like,
Okay, I just had a suggestion if he knew.
But you could just
That'd
say,
be a
you
great
could just say,
answer.
I heard this presentation about protecting kids, and I thought of you. Well, you don't have, you could just open it that way.
yeah, obviously it's deep and there's a lot of emotional stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, here's the issue is, I promise you, parents, even if they're not Christians, are worried about this. They're wanting information. Like, I don't have a trouble getting parents to come to these things. I travel around the country doing these presentations, and like, there's no trouble getting people to show up to these things. In fact, I've wondered why churches don't host things like this and make it an evangelistic thing and invite the neighbor. You would get a bunch of atheists that would come to this because they're just as worried as anybody else. The difference, I think, let me tell you, this is true. People who are not Christians are more likely to look for this help than people who are Christians, because the Christians think, well, my kid wouldn't do that. This is an evangelistic tool, let me just tell you, yeah.
Is this presentation, this 4-hour presentation, has it been filmed and is it readily available to just like pay to watch the presentation, or?
Actually, we have it filmed, and and I don't know if it's, we just redid our website, and I'm not in charge of that, we're big, I don't know. It used to be that parents, if they wanted to see this, they could just sign up for the newsletter and they would get access to it free. I don't know if, they just redid the website, I'm not sure it's still on there or not. But yes, there is a way,
So bebroken.org?
Yeah. And you look in the family section and see.
And we'll have this whole meeting will be on our resources that you can go back and watch through again.
Okay.
And it'll have all the slides on there, and yeah.
On our website?
That would be.
On our resources for website, and then in our
Is that something,
church center.
is that
resources.
something that could be accessed by anybody anywhere free?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be
Thanks.
a public video in our playlist that you can send them to
Thanks.
watch.
But the one that I have is a little bit expanded because they don't necessarily know everything you guys know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You have to
But
find the
I
apps.
that's a good thing to check and see where that is. Eventually, I'm gonna make it on Pure Life Academy, like, really more robust, but I didn't want to have time. Yeah.
So this is something we could actually like pitch to our church.
Yeah.
Of like, please, like,
Yeah, I'm
let's have a
free.
presentation.
Be Broken does not charge speaking fees, because I already have a salary. And so, absolutely. You know what's weird? I don't know if you ever experienced this, Dave. I grew up here. And people, oh, that's just John, you know? I get paid to fly all over the country and do this presentation, and nobody here wants to hear it. It's like they're like, oh, it's just John. No. It's like,
A prophet is not.
That's what I was thinking.
It's like, but everybody else I know who does what the kind of thing I do have exactly the same experience. It's like other places have to pay to fly me. You don't. I live here. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely, we could come and do this, and we would do probably a 2-hour thing. And the obstacles, I'd blow that out way bigger, and then do this. Yeah.
John, I just, this is maybe a conversation you and I'll have afterwards, or maybe Joel, you and I, and Rachel, but is this proprietary information? Is it copyrighted? What if I wanted to take this
I don't care.
and use it as a PowerPoint presentation of my own? And
That's fine.
I don't mind giving credit, it's just that
No, Be
it's
Broken,
very good.
We
and-
are Be Broken. That's our nature. Is we don't do proprietary. It's like we're trying to spread this word to help people. They want me to train people to go do this. You can give this presentation. I'll
That's
give you
what I
my
was-
slide. Joel has my slide. These are his slides. You already have them.
Okay.
I don't care.
Good question, and great answer. Thank you. Good question, but better answer. Thank you. Second question is, Pure Life training, is that what you call it?
Pure Life Academy.
Academy. Is that related to Pure Life Alliance?
No.
It's unrelated. Okay, you know my history.
Yeah.
We have a long history.
No, Be
there,
Broken. That Be Broken owns that.
Okay,
It
got
has
it.
nothing to do with Pure Life Alliance.
Got it. Thank you.
But Pure Life Academy has stuff for men too. Matter of fact, we're building out a mentor training for guys like you. So we're building out a section for that in the leaders, and we have stuff for wives. We even have stuff for women addicts in there. We don't have
that's a
much
good
for wives.
presentation.
That's the Yeah.
You're in a position to pay.
You know, the second thing that I've really kind of noticed, even felt convicted, you know, hearing your presentation is like, yeah, these are practices for how you talk to your children, but like I realize like I'm not doing this healthfully with my girlfriend. You know, I realize like sometimes I've disclosed stuff to her and then it's created shame and she's been attacking me. Well, why do you respond this way when you do this? And then I don't want to confide in her as much because I don't feel safe.
You know, you bring up a super excellent point.
Yep.
The conversations we're having here, husband and wife should have, boyfriend and girlfriend should have, because it's like, why, I think an important thing to ask your girlfriend or wife, or husband or wife is, when's the first time you saw porn and what did that make you feel like? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, this is, most of these conversations are family-wide.
Relational.
Yeah, and so a lot of this stuff is to kind of take that shame, is like, yeah, I mean, this comes from my wife. I can't believe she stayed with me through all the stuff I went through, but it really helped her have empathy to hear of my childhood. I was sexually abused for 9 years by 2 different people. And it's like, that really paints a different picture than if I never would have told her. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then she had been sexually abused by her cousin. And so that just creates this whole different, hey, we're kind of in this together, getting through. You know what I mean? Everybody has some kind of sexual brokenness. Everybody does. And putting us on an equal plane really helps. Joel?
So for a lot of our guys who are single, is there any tips or tricks on how to enter into a family conversation when you're a brother or an uncle or a friend to a family system?
What I would think, this is what I would say. Think of who in your family, what relative, do you feel like would be most receptive to a conversation like this? And then start with that person and say, you know, can I just share something with you? And like, maybe talk about your child's, I went through this, and you know, and then if they're looking like maybe they're receptive to this, say, you know, it kind of led to some problem with porn, I'm working on that now. And then, now sometimes they may just like, they don't know what to say, and they're nice and stuff like that, but they don't know how to. But I'm surprised how often, more with friends than with family, that people will say, yeah, me too. Do you know what I'm saying? So you cannot expect everybody. My sisters and my brother, this is off the table to talk about. My mom is fine. My dad's passed away. So it's like, it doesn't, sometimes family just like, they're not gonna do that. And that's sad. So have friends if you can, but if you can, I mean, the healthy thing, of course, is if you can talk about this with family, because then that can bring all kinds of stuff. And I've heard guys talk with their brothers, and then their brother gets into a group, and it leads to that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to share, I'm a porn addict. Don't start there. Start with like, I went through this stuff as a kid, and I never had anybody to talk to about it. And you know, whether or not you talk about that just caused a porn problem. Now it just kind of you're kind of dipping your toe in to see how that goes. Yeah.
The you know, I can't tell. I guess there are a lot of guys that I've seen in, you know, my 423 group that have like a tenuous relationship with their spouse. How they disclose after they've acted out. All right, you know, I masturbated, and then the wife asks, well, did you think of me when you masturbated? All right, good, cool, now I'm happy. Or no, you didn't. Well, no, you didn't think of me. Now I'm mad at you. Go to the couch. You know, and so it's this thing. We still always associate disclosation of sin to shame, and even amongst our support system with our partner, and just like, even how do you have like that healthy feelings conversation with the spouse?
Well, that is as much what Rachel's going to be working on as anything else.
Yeah.
Is how to do that kind of thing. This is why. I'm mixing up. Before I came in here, I was doing a training for some other ventures. So research shows that men in recovery whose wives are also getting help do far better than men who are married and their wife is not getting help. In fact, there have been counselors that a man comes to them and says, I have a porn problem, will you help me? And says, only if we see your wife as well. We will not even counsel you unless your wife's getting help. Because what's the point?
Well, and I
Yeah.
think it has
Oh,
so
go ahead.
much to do with this, like a lot of the women that we see, they've never talked about sexuality at all. And they're in this little bubble of like, we are the only people that are going through this, you know, and when you kind of open that up with like, oh no, this is actually an issue out in the world, and you start having conversations with it, the reactions of women change.
Yeah, I want to affirm Joel and Rachel in this because I don't know if you are aware of what a gift they are. I'm sure you're beginning to understand and see some of the changes and things that are occurring in the organization because of that. My wife and I, when we were married, we talked about this all the time. We had no issues with communication. It was easy for us. And I don't know why. She was just an unusual woman that wasn't jarred by my history, and I told her everything. But that's not actually normal. It seems like that's not as common as the reactionary response that we're hearing. And what I'm so proud of Rachel for doing, she's come together with these women and creating an environment of safety and teaching and knowledge that is gonna just be the companion support that we utterly need for the men.
Yeah.
So
Now,
thank you.
there are parts of the country, or places where women go get help, but their husband won't. That does happen too. And then you also have where a husband gets help and their wife refuses to. So you have both, honestly. And I suspect, I'm guessing, that as we move forward, a new dynamic will become the most prevalent, is that women will have their own experience with pornography and masturbation. Maybe they stopped it and they are more likely to stop that at marriage than the husband. But those women, it's the opposite of what we're talking about. They feel like they can't get mad at their husband when he messes up. And that creates a problem because the wife is then enabling him, and then the help for the wife is to learn how to, it's okay to be mad, and actually you should be mad about this. Not okay, it's not okay. You see what I'm saying? And likewise, I have worked with young men like this, where that's the situation, and so they don't understand why it hurts their wife, because it doesn't seem to. She goes, oh, I wish you, okay, And it's like, so then you have to work with a guy to help them, like, dude, this is really messed up, and really, really, really hurts your wife. And then you have some resources to help them kind of exactly. So sometimes you get that. I mean, I've actually seen that happen. That's what the younger, the more likely that kind of stuff is. Yeah.
I wanted to say thank you, because this is actually something I've been praying about. My oldest just turned 3, and it's been on my heart of like, ever since we found out we were having him, I really need to know how to help my son with this, and this is just like prayers answered, so thank you.
You know what? Parents of preschool kids seem to be the most receptive to this because you're younger, and so you're not so freaked out about talking about sex. And also, you're not gonna have to talk about sex yet, but you've gotta get ready. And so, that is the best age of parent to talk to. And so the beautiful thing about it is that you can get these books here, and then, and something like this, and then as they're able to pay attention and care, you can start doing them. Lee Broken doesn't write any of these. I'm like, why would I write them? Somebody else already did them. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is like, these aren't that scary of books to read, and then you get used to it, and then the feeling stuff, that emotional awareness online course will give you some things to start doing kind of soon.
It's foundational.
And so you get this and put this on your refrigerator and start saying, point to me the feeling you're feeling. When they start throwing a tantrum on the floor, you're bringing them over. This is like magic, okay? These kinds of things. So, anyway, that kind of stuff. So I mean, I'm really excited that you're this way. Now, I'll tell you this. Your son, will not manage his sexuality perfectly.
No.
It's okay. It's gonna be okay. It'll be way better than what you went through. My son did look at pornography. My son is 24 years old. He did have issues here and there. He was never a porn addict ever. He entered marriage without that issue. Do you know what I'm saying? He's 24. He's married to a little 9-month-old right now, and he still talks to this. Like he had just a regular job, but he still talks to people when he at work. He gets men his age at work to talk about porn, like with their porn use and that kind of stuff like that. Because he's the co-author of this book, so he always brings up that he wrote a book, and then they wonder what's about it.
Segue.
Yeah, he's an evangelist, a porn recovery evangelist. He's never been in a program like that. He doesn't need one.
That's the goal.
So like,
That is the goal.
there is actually possible for a teenager to get through okay. It's actually possible. You know, we don't think it is, but yeah.
So, on the topic of leveraging your story, a lot of people I've talked to and have had just terrible experiences with their parents, not either never admitting or when they do admit, it's like short and like, yeah, I struggled with lust in the past, and you don't get that. Well, like, okay, you've admitted that you made mistakes, but you don't understand the why, you don't understand the nature of it, the severity of it. So you talked about not disclosing or being too graphic to give your kids a picture. And that was always an argument for my parents, is like, no, you don't. I don't want to be too graphic because then you might get ideas and then go do stuff. So, but then I never got the real nitty gritty of like what was really going on.
Right.
And so there's a skill set in leveraging your story that we've been talking about that I think has been grossly underutilized from people that I know, their parents.
Yeah.
Maybe that's always the perspective kids are gonna have, but what kind of training? So a lot of what we do in group is we're drilling down into why are you tempted? You know, what's the discomfort you're feeling that then we read books, we go through all these books, we're learning this stuff. I guess kind of a question I have for the group is like, do you guys feel good and equipped at leveraging your story? Or do you feel like there's still a lot to learn and you need more resources to be able to do that with your kids and with your wife, with your spouse, with your girlfriend,
with a friend,
with your brothers, you know? Where are you, like, do you guys generally feel like, yes, I'm nailing leveraging my story, or no, I need to learn a lot more about how to share these things?
Yeah, that's a question for you guys.
Yeah.
423 Communities would be a great place to put together some sort of resource pamphlet for leveraging your story.
There we go.
I was thinking, like, if you've ever walked through the disclosure process with Alan, like, it is so well thought out and takes a long time. You don't just sit down and, you know, in that moment tell everything. You have it written out, you practice it with someone, you do edits, all of that. And I feel like it's kind of the same way with this with your kids. It's like you all could use each other, right? Like, okay, I have a 3-year-old, like, I have some time to prep, like, let's do this together.
And there's like for those of us who made really big public mistakes, like I have done, and Joel, you, like, my kid's eventually gonna know about this, right? So like in terms of sharing like there's like when I think through telling my 1.5-year-old, it's gonna start with, yeah, dad's made some big mistakes in the past because of insecurities, and then at some point she's gonna know, yeah, I put my hand on a 17-year-old girl's leg when I was in my 30s, and I was married, you know, like she's gonna know that, people know that, so there is a point in which that will be disclosed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it has to.
And I'm still juggling through like when and how during.
Let me tell you one thing. First of all, you get a lot of advice with that, but this is what a therapist told me this year. I can't remember which one. When you're trying to decide when to tell a kid a thing, you think what age you think that they need to know it, then subtract 2 years. So it's always younger than you think. And so, I told my daughter, because I did some of my story involves legal issues. I told my daughter basic principles when she was 6 for that exact reason. Okay? So knowing how to do it, being careful, you can get guidance. You're connected to people who can help you with guidance on that. 1.5, you got some time. You know what I'm saying? They need to be old enough to understand what you're talking about, right? But then the way you put it, when my daughter got into her teen years, even though I was in ministry by then and doing all kinds of stuff, she asked me one time, goes, I know the basics of your story, but I want to understand better. So we had a conversation about what do you want to know, and you know what I'm saying? So she came to me and wanted to know. Yeah. I remember I was at a Celebrate Recovery thing, and they had me come tell my whole nitty-gritty story to a whole bunch of addicts. And it was at a church that I was attending, our family was attending, I was getting up to tell my story, and like as much detail as appropriate for adults, which is a lot. And my 13-year-old daughter walked in and sat in the front row. And I said it anyway. And afterwards, she texted me, she had a dumb phone, texted me, I'm so proud of you. So what I'm saying is, this can be, in my experience with my kids, now, not my family, my sisters disowned me. And I haven't spoken to my brother in 25 years. Doesn't always end pretty. It's okay. True. It's okay. That's why I have a church family for. Yeah. You know, what did Jesus say when his mom and brothers were bugging him and said, "This is my family"? You see what I'm saying? There's truth in that.
Yeah. So. Well, guys, we're at our time, and we always honor our time commitments, so we can continue to pepper John as long as he'll stay around. But let me close us out in prayer, and I'll just pray for John's last part. Lord, we thank you again for this space. We just thank you for the wisdom and the knowledge that I believe was imparted by your Spirit, that we might learn how to shepherd generations and generations of people through this process of broken sexuality and healing. But I just thank you for the ministry and the work that John is doing, for the ministry and the work of Be Broken, that they are bringing these conversations down to the earliest of age so that we can explain your grace and your mercy upon us, broken people, to our kids and for future generations. So I just pray that you bless his ministry, that you give him wisdom and insight and favor as he continues to do your kingdom work on this earth. I just pray for all of our brothers and sisters in our 423 communities and their families, that you'd be with them this week and in this season, God, that you'd bring just sweet seasons of peace and restoration to these families, God, with all the different stories that are going on in the background. Lord, we pray that you would be sovereign and that your grace would be made apparent through every situation. Once again, we thank you for this space and for your goodness as our good Father. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Good meeting, Joel. Thanks.
Yeah, John's still here. Please take a look at his books and his materials, and there's a lot of good stuff there. We will make, I'll put the hand up you put, I'll put that as a PDF,
and you
as a part of our resources tab.
Right, and if you want, remind me, and I can give you, find the link to that video, because it's on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah, and we'll put some more resources in relation to these parent materials on our website for you guys to take a look at.
This is sort of like the background for everything.
Joel, I got some questions for you.
Yeah, it's a big Bible.